Hello and welcome to the Sandip Roy Show on Express Audio.
The Sandip Roy Show.
After tourism numbers plummeted world over during the pandemic, they are yet to fully bounce back in India. India has not reached the pre-pandemic peak of 10.9 million foreign visitors. Even as India peaked at 10.9 million, Dubai alone hosted 16.7 million visitors. What ails Indian tourism is the subject of another show. But while Indian tourism tries to shake off its blues, one part of India is getting a lot more tourist attention these days: the Northeast. At one time, many Indians would be hard-pressed to identify Mizoram correctly on the map versus, say, Manipur. That might still be the case, and stories of suspicion and prejudice about Northeasterners still make news. But the Northeast is becoming more and more a destination for those who want a taste of something different in India. And it's going beyond the rhinos of Kaziranga and the waterfalls near Shillong. Thanks in part to many social media influencers, the Northeast is coming on the radar of travelers both from India and abroad. Festivals like the Ziro Indie Music Festival in Arunachal or the Hornbill Festival in Nagaland are on the cultural map now. Season 2 of the Amazon series Patal Lok heads to remote corners of the Northeast. But is the Northeast ready for its close-up? Today we talk to two guests who are in the business of promoting the Northeast to the rest of the world. Nishant Sinha was co-founder of Chalo Hoppo, whose goal is using travel as a vehicle to preserve and promote the natural and cultural heritage of Northeast India. Nishant is currently the coordinator of community-based tourism for WWF India. Grace Marbaniang, along with Yashraj Shaw, founded Escape to Meghalaya, a travel company based in Shillong, offering curated travel experiences all over Northeast India. Nishant Sinha, Grace Marbaniang, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
I was thinking when we talk about the Northeast and tourism ventures there, people often talk about building a bridge, right, between the Northeast and rest of India, or even rest of the world for that matter. When you talk about Northeast to people in other parts of India, what are some of the impressions, stereotypes, if you will, that people seem to have about what the Northeast is?
Great. I think it's probably an uncommon cliche, or it's common, but I come from Tripura and it's not cold, unlike maybe most parts of the Northeast. And there's one general assumption that Northeast is cold and probably snows everywhere. That's the most basic, I would think. And then the common ones are like, okay, you eat dogs and cats and buffaloes and all of that. Some of them are true, some of them are false. Regardless, it's very superficial understanding perhaps that people have. And I think I thought that over the years, since I started working in the tourism space, it would have changed, but it's interesting that there's a long way to go.
So from my experience, when people, especially people from the north, they come to Northeast, and when my experience here in Meghalaya, so they are shocked that, you have this, you have that. And, it's like, yeah, of course, we are not staying in a village.
And Grace, you grew up in Shillong, or where did you grow up?
Yeah, so basically, I grew up in a village called Ryangdo. And I'm from West Khasi. I did my studies and everything from my village only. And after class, I passed out my 10th from there. And then I came to Shillong for 11, 12 and my degree and all. Then I settled here only with my uncle and my brothers and my sisters. After that, I never go back to my village because my mom and dad, they both passed away. So I just kind of make my Shillong as my home only. And that's how we started exploring the whole Meghalaya. Yeah.
And what about you, Nishant? You said you grew up in Tripura.
I'm from Tripura, like my I don't know how many generations, they're all from Tripura. My mother is from Assam. And so I've moved around in Tripura and then Assam and then the usual stuff, Bangalore and Bombay and Pune and the metros of our country. And then a year abroad also for a master's. And yeah, and now in Arunachal.
So in places like Bangalore and Pune, did you have to confront some of the prejudices we often hear about that Northeasterners face in terms of renting and things like that?
I'm very glad you asked that. So when I moved to Bangalore in 2008 for my undergrads, so I wanted to move near the college. I was in St. Joseph's College and we were looking for accommodations. I remember calling one of those real estate agents, brokers, and I asked him for a house and he asked me where you're from. And I said, I'm from Tripura. He said, I don't understand that. So, like, where? Like, oh, I said, okay, Northeast. He said, okay, fine. Northeast and Maldives. I'm not saying Northeast alone. He said, Northeast and Maldives, no house on rent. And because I was 18, right, I was surprised, okay? And it hurt me in a very weird way that he hasn't even seen me or, just by hearing that I'm from the Northeast, he refused to give me a place. And then eventually I had an uncle who had an address in Kolkata. So I used that address to get a house. Not that my owner, the home owner, would have asked for it, but because of that fear, I was like, okay, let me just get a new document and get a house on rent. And I think that was the point when I felt that difference. And I felt like, okay, there's the us versus them feeling. It had never come until then. So there was a huge sort of a very patriotic side to me and all of that until then. And then I was like, okay, wait, I mean, why is this sort of segregation happening? And then the quest to understand more of the Northeast started at 18. Because Sandeep, the most interesting thing, not the interesting thing, but the most unspoken aspect is that you may be from the Northeast, but your understanding of the region, the states, the people, the tribes, the culture is as good as anybody from Bombay or Bangalore if you don't care to learn about it. So it's taken
Right.
for granted that, oh, you have a friend from Shillong, then they'll know everything.
Did your landlord ever give you a reason as to why he wouldn't rent to Northeast and Maldives?
I don't understand the Maldives bit, but I'm just getting a feeling that maybe because I think it was a religion thing, because many Maldives people follow Islam, and maybe with some landlords, they didn't want to entertain Muslim tenants, which is also very sad. And I think with the Northeast, if I can say it, I don't know on air, but I think the assumption was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Literally, like that's the cliche. So,
Party.
okay, these party. And not to say that doesn't happen, but anyway.
And not to say that a Nishant Sinha who's from Delhi will not be partying either.
Correct.
Grace, in terms of what Nishant was just saying, that just because you're from Shillong, people will assume, oh, you know everything about all seven sisters and Sikkim, but that's not true. So how much did you know about people from the other six sisters while growing up?
Generally, or honestly, I'm telling, I didn't know much because I myself belong to a village. No, I hardly get to go out. Now that I got the privilege to go out a lot, so I've learned a lot even from my neighbor states and all like that. And we don't really keep in mind that, it's that important for us to learn about other, culture, about my own neighboring state and all like that. But it was always Meghalaya for me. Yeah.
So, in retrospect, do you sometimes wish that instead of calling it Escape to Meghalaya, you should have named it Escape to Northeast?
I never thought that, I'll be doing bigger than, go out of Meghalaya or something like that. My first priority is always Meghalaya because, who knows better Meghalaya than me, like being a local here, right? So I always want to promote Meghalaya first, then other places. I don't want to go and interfere. Like from my side, I feel like, local there, they know their place better than me. But, when people from outside, they come to Meghalaya and, they start promoting and all, I appreciate that. But to be honest, a local from here, he or she will know better than Meghalaya. So with that in mind, I always try to push Meghalaya more. And when we started Escape to Meghalaya also, it's always about Meghalaya. I didn't even have that thought in my mind that, I'll go and ahead and start promoting other state and all like that. But now that I've learned a lot, it's always nice to learn, new things and all like that. So I'm trying to expand outside also with the help of the local and all. Yeah.
I'm really interested in hearing both sort of the founding stories. So, Nishant, could tell us how did Chalo Hoppo come about?
From the point that I didn't get that house, I started to understand and learn about the Northeast, and that happened through the university. We had a club. It was called the Northeastern Tibetan Students Forum. And that forum was extremely active. There were regular food festivals and a whole lot of cultural events throughout the year. And it was all kind of the highlight used to be one annual mega cultural event called the Footprints. And during the fourth edition of Footprints, I was the head of the group of that forum. And we did everything that we could. So you had food stalls from all the states. We had a fashion show, ramp walk, all of that. So my heart was not at all in studies. I was doing a bachelor in computer applications, and I passed out with good grade. But I used to go to university just because after classes would end, I would go and meet with my fellow coordinators and plan for the events throughout the year. I didn't know at that point that what I was doing at the university level could also become a source of livelihood or revenue later. And I joined, Teach for India. I did my master's. I worked in advertising for about 3 years, and I was getting tired of selling. So I got my job by selling Foster's. By making a marketing pitch for Foster's beer. And then I had worked on Castrol and then Asian Paints.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll, man.
Yeah, all of that. And I felt like, why am I selling these things that people don't really need? And if I am good at selling something, I could probably sell something that is worth selling. And I felt like then I came back to Guwahati in 2016. And as four of us came together and we started selling the Northeast because I thought it's a great product that needs to be sold and the right way. That's very important, with the right messaging. And then both the service providers are earning and tourists are also learning something. So that's how it started in 2016. Chalo Hoppo.
And how did you all come up with the name?
So we used to brainstorm over WhatsApp. One was in Jorhat, one was in Guwahati, and two other guys, we were in Bombay. So one of my other partners, he said the name Hoppo after multiple names we had gone through. Hoppo is a word in the language of the Lakota tribe. Lakota is a group of Native Americans in the South and North Dakota states of the US. And in their language, Hoppo means let's go. So he suggested Hoppo. And then I was like, to me as an Indian at that time, we were trying to target the Indian audience, right? Hoppo by itself did not have a ring to it. So I slept over and then kept thinking of Hoppo sounds very nice and energetic and young, right? So what could go with it? And then I said, wait, we always keep saying Chalo, right? And then at that time for us, it was like, you know what, let's just do it. Let's leave our jobs. Let's start a company and we'll see how it goes. So it was about being spontaneous. And then I said, okay, Chalo Hoppo.
And what about escape to Meghalaya? Because I know your partner Yashraj is also a musician. So I thought, were you all doing music videos and discovered that maybe you could do travel too?
I would say it's like God's plan. All credit, I'll give it to my dogs, my huskies and all, because we all started this because of them only. I started taking them out. During the COVID, I could not take them out and all like that. So I started sneaking out, even though we were not allowed to go out here in Shillong. So it was all lockdown and all. But I did sneak out here and there, like nearby places to take my dogs out and all. And that's how it started. I started exploring. And then me being a village girl, I love to be in the jungle and all. Then one producer, he approached me knowing that I have dogs and all. And he said Grace, we need a husky to be in a music video. And I'm very excited, my dog will be in the music video like that. And I didn't know Yash at that time. I know the producer here in Shillong. So I went and met, and then the day I met Yash, I thought he's a crew member. I didn't even know he's a singer. And beside him, there's Miss India or something like that, the leading lady in his music video. And so I was more interested to know her. So I didn't know that Yash was the singer and it's his music video. And later on, the producer, he introduced us. He's like, oh, it's his music video. I said, really? I thought you were a crew member or something, because he was carrying all these boxes and all like that. No? Then, from there we connected. Then later on, we started talking. Then I told him I got a lot of DMs of people coming to Meghalaya and all like that. I'm not fluent with Hindi. People here, we speak a lot of English only. And then Hindi is not that important for us here like that before. But now I've learned Hindi and all through Yash. And he's very good with talking and I'm very good with walking. So our combination just, combine that and then it's mega perfect. So I'm in the field all the time and he's talking with the client and all. And that's how we form Escape to Meghalaya.
What are the names of the huskies?
So I have two elders, the Panda, Athena. I have Benji. I have Lulu, who's a local. And I have Baba. 5 dogs at home, yes. And 2 cats now.
Wow. I think Escape to Meghalaya, you should call it Menagerie in Meghalaya or something like that would have been a good name. But when you guys were starting out, and when did Escape to Meghalaya start?
So Escape to Meghalaya started 2022.
So it's relatively new. And Chalo Hoppo started when, Nishant?
2016,
2016.
August. Yeah, January,
Okay.
maybe.
Around then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to ask both of you. You said, this was sort of an untapped potential. You wanted to sell the Northeast in the right way. Tell us about some of the biggest challenges you faced starting out, because you have a good idea, but, it needs infrastructure. It needs a lot of things to make it happen.
Right. So I think initially in 2016, the conversation started with between the four of us in about, I think, January that year or February. And I remember meeting one of the co-founders in Delhi at Starbucks. And I think for me, the fear was that I was coming from a place where we are not from a business family. Like everybody's a white collar professional, doctors, engineers, that kind of background. And so starting a business is not something that comes naturally. And there's always a doubt with that. And so I just had to think about what is the biggest thing that I could lose. And at that time, it was like, okay, I won't have money maybe for some time, but I was young, about 26, if I can say that is young at that time. And luckily, my parents had a home. So I was like, okay, if everything goes flat, I'm going to go and take shelter in my parents' home. We also probably got the confidence to do it because social media was booming. I don't know if we would have I would have personally dared to venture into it had I not personally been working in the field of social media marketing. So the challenge is we had absolutely no money. And it is not a business idea that you get venture capital from. It was not a scalable idea. It's a tour company. It's an experiential tour company. It's not something that you have venture capitalists investing in and you're going to grow 10 times every year. So it was about bootstrapping. But then we figured that the reason we could start a travel agency, the worst thing to say is travel agency. I hate that word, but at the core, is that you just need a laptop and yourself, right, to start off. So I think that's how we started. And the challenge was to reach out.
And what were some of the first tours you offered?
So the funny thing is, Sandeep, so the partners who are here in the Northeast, the first trip that we pitched is an absolutely offbeat experience. Even in 2025, it's as offbeat as it gets because it was a place in central Arunachal. It was a trek in a village called Tirbin. Nobody has heard of that, I'm sure. So it's a place called Tirbin, and it was a 7-day trek through these villages of Tirbin and Yomcha. So it's near this place called Along, which is now on the way to the famous Mechuka that has become. And I remember talking to the local guy who had given this trek to us, which was found by one of my partners. I don't know how he found him. And he was on the phone. I was sitting in my flat in Churney Road, Marine Lines, Bombay. And he's telling me, I'm asking him, I need to write this itinerary, 8-day itinerary. So tell me, day one, what do you see? He's like, सब कुछ बहुत सुंदर है, ऐसा जंगल है, पहाड़ है, बहुत सुंदर है. I'm like, how do I write बहुत सुंदर है for 7 days?
I need more.
Like, what am I going to write? So anyhow, through that, whatever his descriptions, I kept digging in and we wrote the first itinerary. And I felt like that's a problem. I mean, how can I sell something that I'm not even, I don't know what I'm selling, right? And 90% of the travel companies, even till today, do that. So that was our first itinerary, a trek to Tirbin Yomcha. Fantastic trek went, but we stopped that because we didn't have trained guides and it was a little risky for us to continue with that.
And what about you, Grace? What was the first escape in Meghalaya that you planned?
I remember I was so nervous because in my experience, I have never done this. I'm like very shy to talk to people, but Yash have encouraged me so much. It's like, no, don't worry. You can do this. So I remember there's a couple. She's from Guwahati only. She approached me. She's like, Grace, I have watched a lot of your reels and, I follow you on Instagram, like that. I would love to meet your dogs. If you can take me around like that. Then I was like, wow, first client, so nervous. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to talk. And then, she made the itinerary and all. And then with my knowledge and all, he was then making here and there. And then I was telling, no, don't do this, because I know the places and all here in Meghalaya. No?
Where all in Meghalaya did you take them?
So at that time, Pepe Falls and all just started becoming a tourist place. And it's a beautiful waterfall, right? So we took them to Fefe. We took them to, there's a waterfall called Padam. At that time, it was not popular at all, and now it become a tourist spot again. So we took them to Padam here in Cherrapunji, some offbeat places and all like that. And yeah, they love it.
Speaking of waterfalls, I remember when I went to Arunachal, Nishant, I was told, oh, you have to go to see the Madhuri Dixit waterfall. Was that something that had been a tourist? Now, what film was that from? I've forgotten.
Koila.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So is that something that developed later in the course of this opening up of the Northeast? Or did she put Koila waterfall in the map so that now it's even known as the Madhuri waterfall? Though I was told by a local that it was a body double in that water. Madhuri Dixit did not get into the water.
I still don't know what that scene looks like. I just know that, but maybe it's not the waterfall, it's the lake, the Madhuri Lake.
Oh,
there's also a waterfall.
That's right. There's the Madhuri Lake, and that's the Madhuri Lake.
Right.
Sorry, yeah, exactly.
Great. But there is a waterfall which is also used in that film where Shah Rukh Khan probably jumps from it.
Right.
And the joke is that he jumps there, but he comes out in Bhalukpong or whatever. Basically, the river doesn't go there. But nobody knows that, of course. So this route, right, the one you mentioned, Madhuri Lake, obviously because of Koila having been shot back in the 90s, at that time, I think, because I'm today in Dirang, which is en route Madhuri Lake, and Grace also knows that. So this has been one of the most popular destinations or circuits, if we may use the tourism term, in the Northeast for a very long time. So there used to be the Kaziranga, Cherrapunji, Tawang circuit. And even till today, there are companies who are selling this. So I definitely think, yes, Madhuri Dixit and Koila shooting that put this place in the map, but it also has the Tawang Monastery, which is about an hour and a half before the lake, so which is the second largest in Asia. So in the first place, they probably shot it here because we also have the fascination as Indians with snow. I'm being snobbish, but I find that the most ridiculous reason to travel, but it's fair, right? I mean, if I have not seen snow, I would travel. But now that I've seen so much snow, I'm becoming cocky and be like, come on, not for snow. I mean, don't travel for snow.
I'm going to disagree here, Nishant, and say, like, when I went to Tawang in October, I was actually like, oh, you come up this high and you're not actually surrounded by snow-capped peaks in October. I mean, because it snows there in December. But
right.
In many other parts of India, you're much lower down, but because you get to see snow-capped peaks year-round.
Right.
So I have to admit, I felt a little bit snow-cheated.
Oh my God.
Now is the time to come down then, yeah, full of snow.
Well, this woman at a small bar we went to in Tawang told us, like, yes, everybody comes for snow in December and January, and then the hot water doesn't work, and then they flee because they're like too much snow. We can't. You want to look at snow, you don't want to stay in snow, which actually leads to another question in terms of infrastructure, logistics, and things. How much of a challenge is that for people trying to do tour operators and stuff, ASIC-based things people have come to expect, infrastructure, whatever, 24/7 hot water, digital connectivity, things like that. How much of that has been a challenge?
So 2019, November, October to December, I did a 50-day tour, like Grace, being a guide, not as graceful, but I had to just be, who I am, with an American couple, octogenarian couple. And that was the first time I realized what infrastructure is lacking when you want to attract people who want to pay. Because the problem with the Northeast is we are just dealing with penny pincher tourists most of the time. And your infrastructure is just for that. Oh, I have a homestay with ridiculous, hideous wall colors like pink and God knows what colors. And just a bed with more colors. So you enter and you're like, wow, I should now pop some acid maybe.
Oh, those fuzzy multicolored blanket.
Yeah, right. So as a customer or a client who wants to pay, very basic things were missing. And it's an American tourist at the end of the day. And according to him, the American tourists can be quite a pain to handle compared to European tourists, right? So the basic layout of the Western toilet, like the Western bathroom. So he said that having a commode does not mean it's a Western toilet. You have to have wet and dry areas because I don't know how to use those flip-flops and walk in the bathroom. I might fall. So you either need to give me a squeegee to keep drying the bathroom, or you need to orient the bathroom with that separate wet and dry area. So, and then the geysers are not big enough for you to take a shower. You can take a bucket bath, but you can't take a shower. Many basic, simple things like that. So I think that tour, which was also my, penultimate tour with Chalo Hoppo before I the pandemic hit, I learned a lot. If the Northeast has to preserve or conserve their ecological and social sort of balance, it is important to not ape the Bhutan policy of having completely like blocking out backpackers and saying, we will not allow backpackers at all, but also at the same time have the room, have certain experiences, activities, and properties that people who are willing to pay can pay for.
Grace, were there any similar or different issues that you all faced in terms of what people expected and what was available?
So just like Nishant said about his experience, even I had some experience here in Shillong with the client who came from Chennai. So here, if you come to Meghalaya, I think very few you'll see fans and AC and all. We don't use fan and AC here like that much because our weather here mostly either raining or like in the summer it get hot, like in a week 1 day or 2 days you'll get very sunny and all like that. So when they came here they were like, oh, there were no AC, no fan. So at that time when I was like new, I don't know like what to say to them, that we don't use all these things. So it became very awkward. We're learning.
What about digital connectivity? Does that become an issue when you go further out from places like Shillong? I mean, people expect to be online all the time and be posting their Instagram reels instantly.
Yeah, a lot of problem. But since Jio and all have come up and all, but the network here is much better, but not in all places. In the city and all, yeah, it's fine. But if you go out of the city, then you'll find problem everywhere. Yeah.
Now it's much better. I remember years ago going to Shillong and my Vodafone stopped working and I couldn't tell my family back in Kolkata that I had reached safely. And then I went up to some hill and it finally suddenly kicked into life and the phone said, "Welcome to Bangladesh." And I had picked up Vodafone in Bangladesh, but not in India.
I remember the time when Vodafone and all was there, we literally climb in the tree and they're like, hello, can you hear? Like, with one bar and they're like, hello. Yeah, but now it's very smooth. Everything, you get Wi-Fi. And, I mean, in the city, I can guarantee you'll get network, but out of the city, yeah, you'll find some places, you'll find difficult to get network and all, yeah.
Nishant, what about security? How much has that been a concern for people when you talk to them about the Northeast? Because unfortunately, most of the time, the Northeast, when it makes news in the rest of India, is when there is trouble, militancy, insurgency.
So, yeah, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, I was dealing with tourists on a regular basis, conversations and phone calls. So the security was a very legitimate question that people would ask, genuinely concerned. They would ask, how secure are we? And I don't know about ChaloHoppo's new website, but I remember writing a lot of FAQs, and availability of veg food was one of those FAQs. How safe are you was one of those FAQs. Network was one of those FAQs, and Vodafone was an absolute no-no in those recommendations. But security-wise, the problem is, as you said, that the news that would be the most fascinating or kind of it would make headlines would be the insurgency, because that's the spiciest kind of news that you can get. You're not going to get a news that 5 huskies are trekking to some beautiful, pristine spot. So what we were doing in our marketing strategy, I would say, in Chalo Hoppo times, before the Reels era, by the way, Reels is a different ball game. Before the Reels era, stories and lives were very common. And we had a marketing policy in my company, that every day we would look at the newspaper that we were getting in Guwahati at the time and pick out the positive news from Northeast in that paper and then make a story, Instagram story on that. So if you are following Chalo Hoppo, then every day you are tuning in and you're getting one positive news every day. And we did that for a couple of years, because one is you're discussing and telling people it's safe over a call, right? But one is I'm looking at your stories every day for years and years, and I'm seeing the good stuff. So whatever negativity the mass media is throwing at me, I know that there's a niche company who are from their base there giving me the positive news and hope. So it is a real challenge. And it's not that it's made up scenario, right? Look at Manipur. My mother grew up in Shillong until 72 before Assam and Meghalaya split up. My uncles had a bus service from Tripura to Shillong, and it was chaotic, especially the 90s. At 2000, and now it's way better. Even then, much better. But even then, I remember that when the whole Punjab Patti situation happened in Shillong.
Yeah. What was the Punjab Patti thing for people?
So there's a place called Motran in Shillong. Grace, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. There's a lot of Punjabi population who have been living there for, I think, generations, basically.
Yeah.
And there was some clash. I can't remember what the situation was. There was a clash between the Punjabis and the Khasis, and then it became a.
Yeah, so they had a big fight, and everyone is involved like that, and it comes to the point where they're trying to hurt each other like that. So yeah, it's still there. It's all political,
Yeah. So they made it a racist thing.
Right, where it becomes the trouble.
Something else, yeah.
But as Nishant mentioned, I mean, while only the bad news makes news, it's not that the bad news is untrue. There is this violence happening in Manipur. Even before this current round of violence, I remember I went to Imphal once to do a travel story, in fact, and literally every day the schedule they had given us would change because there would be some trouble and there would be, say, like, oh, there's going to be a road blockage. So we can't do what we had planned. We are going to have to change this. And Grace, right now, as someone working there, is that something you have to deal with? Because that becomes difficult for travelers, right, who come on a tight schedule.
Yes, it's very difficult. On top of that, I'll just tell you the story, like what recently happened. So there's a thing where a clash between the Shillong drivers and the Guwahati drivers and all, where the Shillong drivers, they were protesting not to let the Guwahati drivers to come and, take the tourists and all like that. Shillong people, they wanted to give the local itself here like that. And so what they did is they stopped all the cars and all going to Cherrapunji and all. And then from there, it hurts not only the client and all, the local there also, it affect their business. So I hope the government and all will do something for both the parties where it doesn't hurt anyone like that. Yeah.
What we've been talking about a lot is, how safe is it, whether the Wi-Fi works, how are the toilets and things like that. But as you mentioned, both of you right at the beginning, that while for the rest of India, often the Northeast, most of us, if you were asked to point to Mizoram on a map, we wouldn't be able to do it, to be honest. But there are so many ethnic groups, so many tribes, immense diversity. Do you also have to train the tourists to be respectful of that diversity?
I'll say when people come here, in Shillong, before now that they have learned a lot, but before that we had so many issues with people just throwing garbage here and there, like this, like that. Even the Meghalaya tourism, they have done a lot of things like putting up sign and all like that, to keep the city clean and all like that. And then regarding the culture thing and all like that, I would say the people here, they're always there to teach them like that. So you get some client and all where they respect the culture and all, and some of them they would not even bother and all. They just come to enjoy like that.
And I know, Nishant, that you are now working with a lot of community-based tourism and trying to build that sector up. Sometimes people also can get tired of the tourist who wants to come and sort of gawk at your culture like you're a specimen at a zoo, or come and ask questions like, oh, do you guys eat dogs all the time?
So I think maybe how we as tour operator or as outsiders would look at it. Like I'm an outsider in Arunachal, right? And I'm training the community about hosting and running a business and all of that. So as outsiders, as people who have been exposed to tourism and we understand how tourists are and how sometimes tourists can be obnoxious, the locals, I don't think they look at it that way, at least in places where tourism is still nascent. We may think that Tawang it's a very popular tourist circuit. But if I look at the data from the tourism department, right, from the West Kameng, the district that I am in, it's in a year, from the last year's data, 62,000 tourists have arrived here, according to the DTO, right, District Tourism Officer's data. That is nothing. So I don't know Meghalaya's data. It will be much, much higher. Because here, me trying to take a photo with you in your traditional dress, me being like me as a local, I'm feeling privileged and happy that you are interested in knowing my culture and you want to take a photo with me, because I feel that the numbers are still very nascent. Now, if that happens day in and day out and every day for years and years, what you're saying definitely will become an issue. I also know another place where we used to take tourists in Nagaland. It's the Mon district, where the Konyak tribes are, the headhunters, tattooed, the last of the tattooed headhunters as they are popularly known. There, I think they reached a point where they were like, they accepted the fact that people are going to come and look at us, and whether we are specimens or not, doesn't matter, but people are going to look at me and I need to get paid if I am being kind of photographed. So because it's not organized by the government or the local village council, etc., until 2020, I'm talking about, I don't know, I haven't been there in the last 4 years. In some villages, it was a mandate. Like we know that we will be meeting 15 of the tattooed headhunters, old people. Their local point of contact would tell us that this is the amount you pay. So you kind of pay that 1,500 or 2,500, whatever, to the group as a whole, right? In the same district, there was another village called Longwa, very famous again for the king's house being split between India and Myanmar. And in Longwa, it was different versus the other village where I was talking about called Hongphoi. In Longwa, when you're walking around and you're trying to go to that border, there would be these few of the septuagenarian, octogenarian old people, right? And they would kind of become hostile to say, give me money. And it's not just the septuagenarians, it's the kids who are barely crawling on the ground. They're like, Paisa Dibi in Naga means give me money. So I saw that happening in Nagaland. And because that has seen probably more people coming and taking photos and their understanding of people are coming and taking something from me, but I'm not getting anything in return was higher versus here, which is still a kind of a upcoming region. So it's tricky.
It is tricky. And I went to Tawang and I asked, like, I saw all these sort of local foods and local drinks, local alcohol that was available, and tried to find them. And I discovered, like, not even at my hotel could anybody direct me to anything, because the only food that was sort of available to tourists was tourist food, which was either North Indian or it was the momo thukpa kind of thing. But the sort of tribal food was not readily available unless you knew someone home.
Absolutely. That's when, I think last March in Chuk, which is a village about 8 kilometers from where I'm sitting at this moment, from Dirang, we started this restaurant called Damu's Heritage Dine, which I was telling Grace she should also visit. Because I think if you add that to your itinerary is going to completely change, because I'm 100% sure that nobody has experienced, as Sandip was saying, authentic Monpa food. Thukpa and momos are also Monpa food, but it's also a generic food that all people in Tibet and south of Tibet have, right? But the tribes here have very interesting, distinct forest-based food as well. And those items are not provided anywhere. So at Damu's, it's the only place at this point where we are providing, we're charging a premium. And the reason to charge a premium is also that you have to value traditional food. And of course, because they're the only players in the market, so to speak, we have also the opportunity to charge a premium, and it's a small space. It can only seat about 11 people at one time. So it's a very niche affair, But I am saying that the point of starting this community-led restaurant is not to say that this should be the only restaurant. It's not a problem when you've got great ideas being copied and people are getting good quality to choose from. The problem is right now if you walk into the Dirang market right now, there'll be like every 20 meters, there's a place selling thukpa and momo and selling you beer, Kingfisher or whatever.
Grace, how does that resonate with you? I mean, of course, the Northeast is known for its scenic beauty, but do you find people who come there are actually interested in wanting to find this kind of food, very local food that Nishant was talking about?
It depends. Like if your clients, they love to eat non-veg. Since we love non-veg, so the non-veg one, they are very interested to taste our food. And so talking about the local food and people who come here, if they're interested or not, I find from my experience, the one who likes to travel a lot, who really love adventure, rather than people who just come for vacation just to chill and all like that. It's very different. But people, especially, I'll just give example from Gujarat and all. They are like fully veg. They love veg, mean veg only, like that, pure veg. No, then
do they carry their own stuff?
Full bag.
Yeah.
Full bag. I eat with them only. I enjoy their food a lot. Like, what do they call that one? The round one.
Papada and tepla and all of those things. Yeah, tepla.
Oh, I love. So they brought a lot of food, and I get to taste their food. I try to encourage them to taste my food, but knowing that they are pure veg, so I don't want to suppose like that. Yeah.
These people who are coming to the Northeast, they're coming because it's a little different from what they're used to. They want a little bit of the offbeat experience, off track, which begs the tricky question, and I'll put it to both of you. is how long can the offbeat be offbeat when you're trying to popularize it? Do we have to be careful what you wish for? Because otherwise you could end up like, with Uttarakhand or somewhere like that. I know it's a long way to go, but is that a danger?
It's a danger. It's not very long to go, because the very fascinating feature, I'm using the word fascinating a lot, fascinating feature of the indigenous people is that the adoption of new things, technology, clothing, music, anything is really rapid. And that is, I've seen that indigenous people are more kind of adaptive and more flexible to accepting these new things versus, let's say, any major community like a Bengali or a Gujarati or Assamese or whoever. So, and the fear in that is that there is not much good things going around that they can adopt. I don't know if there's a survey on this. If you look at the consumption of Pepsi, I'm not saying Coca-Cola, I'm saying Pepsi and Mountain Dew in the per capita consumption in Arunachal, I think the numbers are going to be staggering, because it is a part of their like life. Like any earlier, they would give a chang, like a local alcohol when you go home. Now it's like juice, aka Mountain Dew, if not Pepsi, right? So in the last 1 year that I've been in Dirang, I've seen rapid construction happening, and it's horrific looking, first of all, and it's also dangerous because some of them are at the edge of cliffs, and some of them are on the riverbed. When the river is going to flow big, it's bound to happen, and there are also government buildings coming up on the river bed, on the valley itself. So the problem is that while everybody wants to have revenue, the government also wants to push tourism as a revenue churning. I mean, Conrad Sangma is doing a fantastic job promoting Meghalaya. Anyway, Meghalaya is one of the first states in the Northeast to have been exposed since the British time with Welsh missionaries and everything. Conrad Sangma was also a very well traveled and learned man. He's doing the tourism promoting in a very interesting, in a right way. Right way, I don't know, but he's promoting it very well. So the volumes are coming in, but I don't know how much of the sustainability and responsibility and long-term perspective the people at the grassroots who are taking the benefit of this, who are opening their homestays, who are becoming guides, how aware are they about these challenges that they'll face in the future? That is a very gray area. So Arunachal, 100%, it is rampant, it is unplanned, it is just haywire. And unless, yes, the state is trying to get, have a policy out, and as WWF, I think we're probably also going to help them hopefully kind of draft the tourism policy. I mean, without that, it's, danger.
I remember when I went there, I was impressed by how good the road was going. But at the same time, I remember going in Dirang, it was still at night when you stepped out of the hotel and you looked out. It looked like just darkness all around because the hills were still covered with forest. And I was thinking whether that same highway which I had been praising and the ease and the connectivity it offered was also going to become the way the next time I went there, the hills might be covered with lights.
I was just walking back home from my office and rushing back to join this podcast, and I just looked up and it looked beautiful. I could see the entire skyline with full of stars and everything. And will that go away? The problem is, it's not going to go away that soon. But it's like, because the entire world is losing so much forest cover and everything, right? While Arunachalis may think and Dirang people may think that we've got so much primary forest. I mean, even losing a small patch in the larger scheme of things, to them, it may be like I've just cut out a little bit of my forest, But in the larger scheme of things, it plays a huge role.
Right.
And you can see it. I mean, the Dirang's river is unfortunately very messed up. The waste management is completely not there. So it's scary. And the homestays have increased. The term homestay itself is no longer valid. It's just a hotel that you're masquerading as a homestay. So those kind of things bother me, but maybe I'm being a purist and idealist and whatever.
But Grace, are these things you're worried about as well? Because right now we hear, people constantly say these things like responsible tourism, ecotourism. But on the ground, what do those terms actually mean?
Yeah, now I don't think so. People really even focus on ecotourism and all like that. It all meant business for them and all like that. Like very few like that. I do a lot of orbit places and all, right? Like I try not to reveal the location and all, in the concern of because of once if I reveal, then people will start coming and then they'll destroy the places and all like that. But that's the thing. If you don't reveal also, they'll have problem with you. If you reveal also, they have problem with you. So you don't know what to do exactly. But then I tried not to reveal all these places. But sometimes I do when I meet the local and all, thinking I talk to them, I connect with them. They tell me their stories, how much they suffer and all like that. And, they want this place to be promoted and all like that. So with that reason in mind, sometimes I just share the location, just I can help the local there, people there to become a guide.
Nishant, what do you think? What should responsible tourism in the Northeast look like?
In the Northeast, it's mostly rural areas, right? Village areas and forest areas that we have, majorly that. So we will have to then start with rural tourism, right? So if you start with saying that, okay, first let's say, okay, rural tourism is the main sort of tourism. And in rural India, most people are farmers, agriculturalists in the broader sense of the term. And otherwise, if I'm in a village and I'm not doing agriculture, then I'm a villager, right? So there are two kinds of things that's happening. That's one is I'm an agriculturalist who's doing something with connected to my agriculture and stuff and converting that into tourism. And secondly, I'm a village person who's not into agriculture and I'm still offering a service, a homestay, or I'm being a guide, etc. And I'm providing that service. So that's how we could define rural tourism broadly. And then we say, okay, how do you add responsibility to that, right? So first is that the people at the grassroots need to be upskilled. It's very important. They need to understand that tomorrow a Grace, a Nishant, a Delhi-based travel company will come to them. So what do they need to be prepared for? So the responsibility will have to start at their end, right? So the village people have to be empowered to set the guidelines. If I'm going to be promoting a waterfall in some village in Meghalaya, I have to do it as Grace said, right? It's also like we want to help the locals out. But as the government, our responsibility is that is the village ready to handle the tourists? Because it'll take one reel to blow up and that place can become completely, it goes viral. And then what happens after that, right? So if you're going to start by defining rural tourism as the main focus area, then you say, I'm going to have to empower and educate the rural people. It'll take years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever, but you start there. Then you're ensuring that the benefits that are coming from a Grace and from any other travel company from anywhere, that is getting distributed. There's a distribution mechanism. So I may be one homestay owner, I may be a guide, but I am able to run that business because my villagers are also helping in keeping that place the way it is, right? If my villagers start trashing around my village, tourists are not going to come and pay for that.
Right.
So I should not be greedy and selfish and say, oh, I'm doing all the hard work, I keep the money. So there needs to be a revenue sharing mechanism wherein saying that, okay, I am not directly involved in tourism, but as a citizen of this village, I am contributing. Therefore, there has to be an entry fee or some other mechanism where wealth distribution in the village can happen. And with the upskilling that I'm talking about, with the education of the rural stakeholders that I'm talking about, you have the obvious bits. You have the waste management, you train them on how to host tourists, how do you run a homestay, all the 101s of tourism can come in. So if I were to say, what is the way forward for responsible tourism? I think it's to define what is the kind of tourism and considering it as rural tourism as the major source of generating revenue. Then you start from the grassroots instead of like going top down. You start from the bottom up approach. And I think the key part with rural tourism that a lot of NGOs like nonprofits like the one that I'm working in are going to be the players in this sort of a space who will be helping in the upskilling along with the government agencies, the National Rural Livelihood Mission, all of that, right? What happens in most of these rural business settings, rural tourism settings is there's a lot of focus on the social and environmental angle perhaps of the village, right? But the economic angle, like the market connect is just completely left out. So you are creating a product, you're saying, oh, I'm going to create a homestay. So you're just creating a homestay. You're not thinking before creating the homestay. Like the key of marketing is you embed the marketing in the product at the creation stage. You don't create a product and then you hope that you're going to market it to like get some influencers. No. So that market, that emphasis on creating market ready products is missing and NGOs don't have the skills for that, right? And therefore, if you look at many of those rural tourism ventures, you will see that they obviously lack the finesse and the quality of a privately owned run venture because a private person has put his money and effort and whatever, and they know what the market needs. Whereas in a rural place, you will go thinking you will go sympathetically, which is the worst kind of way to go
Charity.
to a tourism area, charity. So we don't want charity tourism. We want that you go to a rural tourism venture because it is absolutely top quality.
Grace, do you have anything to add to that in
Yeah.
terms of what it needs? And do you feel, in terms of even in Meghalaya, Nishant mentioned that the chief minister is very good at promoting the state. But is there something you wish the government would do more of?
As a guide, like, I started as a guide, right? So being a girl, going around and all like that, the major thing I face is like, for a guide, they don't give a place to stay and all like that, right? And I have to manage everything on my own. But for a boy, like, even if he's a guide, he can stay in a driver room or anything like that. So for me, I feel like, if a government, like our chief minister, could do anything on that, so it encourage so other girls also to, like, get more into this kind of work also, as we all know that we are all facing problem in getting government job only and all like that. So as we get more opportunity and all to work in this kind of area, because obviously as girl we fear for our safety and all. I know Meghalaya is very safe for us, like for women and all, but still, like,
Have you ever felt unsafe while doing this work?
Never. All the people here, knowing, oh, you're a guide and you're a girl, they're all surprised all the time. Like, you can, stay anywhere, you can go anywhere. It's like, of course, no one can stop me. That's what I wish to do, right?
Well, you also have you have 5 dogs. You have a lot of protection.
Yeah, I take them all the time and everywhere, so they are scared of me, I think, because of the dog also. But yeah, but on the personal experience, I have never had, people are always ready to help, knowing, like, I'm doing this thing like that. Like, they are very friendly and very open with me. Yeah.
I wanted to end by asking each of you a simple thing. Like, is there some place that you, in the Northeast, that you would recommend people to try if they want a bit of a different experience? So, Grace, you want to go first?
I would recommend to go more to Arunachal, Anini. I love Anini. Nishani, you are very lucky to be from Arunachal. I went last year in the month of September. I went to Anini and I fell in love with Anini. People should go there.
What is there? What's it like?
I went for a trek, 7 days trek. And it's a beautiful place. Like, every day you get to see different lake view and different scenario. Like, so beautiful, so beautiful. I'm like out of word to even say. If I get a chance again, I would, jump. Tomorrow only I'll go to Anine, and then I want to go there again. I visit there and then stay there, like, for a week or two, like that. Just be there. Just watch the waterfall. I mean, Meghalaya, we have lots of beautiful waterfall, but when you go to Anini, you see different kind of waterfall again. I was like, oh my God, what a place. What a place. So beautiful. Yeah.
Nishant?
I've been planning that tour since 2021, since the Jimu, the guy first launched this 7 lakes trek. I've been planning to go there, but I haven't been able to go there yet. I think beauty-wise, it's, I mean, as from the pictures I can see and from Grace's words, I understand that the pictures don't lie. And not because I'm promoting Damus, I would say, I think destination dining is a thing. And I would say that you could happily drive all the way from Guwahati to Tirang and Chug and do that dining, because with that, there's also going to be handmade paper making workshop. There's going to be a forest trail where you learn about a little bit about the forest. There's no magnificent waterfalls like Anini or Grace's backyard in Meghalaya, but you'll have a more the kind of tourism that I kind of believe in, because I've been a backpacker who just went to Tawang to do 30 rupees vodka shots to now who's very like talking about these idealistic things that I want to promote tourism where on that 5-day tour, right, you go back like much richer up here, and we could offer that in this region. So Damo's Heritage Dine, Dirang, look at this Tawang circuit in a very different way with this whole community tourism thing that we are promoting. So I'll sell that. I'll make a pitch for that.
You said you grew up in Tripura, and I was just curious. Tripura is the one state I never hear anything about when it comes to tourism.
It's a very good question. In fact, I would think that Tripura and Mizoram are the states that I know the least about. I've been to Aizawl once, and Tripura and Mizoram are like bordering states. But Tripura, the problem is that from a political perspective, until about 5 years back, it was the CPIM was in power, and for some reason, there were never any interest in promoting tourism. With the new government, they're trying to promote tourism. So it's just begun. Like I run an Airbnb at my home because I don't live there, so my rooms are empty. So I'm kind of letting it out on as an Airbnb thing, and I'm surprised to see that tourists are coming, and it has a very different appeal. It could appeal to people who are into archaeology, people who are into architecture, because we've got palaces on water. We've got the 999 lakh rock carvings in Unakuti. We've got the Chobimura where they've got the huge Durga goddess carved on the rock cliff. So it's very different from the absolutely stunning natural beauty that other states offer. And that's where, if you talk about the marketing strategy of northeastern states, they should together do it. This now, I mean, if you try to compete with Meghalaya or Arunachal with natural beauty, you're not going to win, right? So you have to kind of sell that, saying, oh, Meghalaya has amazing nature. We've got amazing history from an architectural perspective. So you got to sell that, and you get that tourist, not the adventurer who wants to trek. So they're missing a trick. And I hope if they're hearing, then I'm available. I'm happy to, help and promote Tripura, my home state.
Well, we'll have to leave it there. It was great talking to both of you. And if you go to Tawang, you must go to, I think it was the Orange Bar, which was run by a lady named Shikha, who was my
with the cap,
with a little cap. And she had these dogs that would be in the bar. And when every restaurant in Tawang had closed down at 8 o'clock, she would say, "Come back, I'll make some chili chicken for you." So she was a lifesaver.
I have had amazing times there. It's the most bizarre. Grace, you should go there. It's a bizarre, rundown bar. Like the roof is falling off. Oh. But that lady, Assamese woman who runs the place, who manages the place, is a sweetheart. And if you want to party till 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the morning, doesn't matter. As long as you're there, she's there. You can play your music. You can do whatever. And it's weirdly amazing.
But thank you so much for joining us today. And good luck with all your ventures, Nishant Sinha and Grace Marbaniang.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Sandip. You've been a wonderful host, and it was a pleasure.
Nishant Sinha was co-founder of Chalo Hoppo, which promotes the natural and cultural heritage of Northeast India through travel. Nishant is currently the coordinator of community-based tourism for WWF India. Grace Marbaniang, along with Yashraj Shaw, founded Escape to Meghalaya, a travel company based in Shillong, offering curated travel experiences in Northeast India. And you know where to find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at Express Podcasts. This show was produced by Shashank Bhargava and edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. Thanks for listening. This is Sandip Roy on Express Audio.